we wanted to make this obviously like a fun kind of marketing session. So, we're gonna put together kind of like a fun marketing ideation session with a fake artist. We're gonna put this in the this. We're gonna share a screen right now.
Sure, this artist is not signed to Alamo.
No, no.
Clean picture.
Hold on. So we call the artist Jade7. So this is a make-believe artist. So you guys have an idea how we approach things. Just for context, she's an R&B artist from St. Louis. She recently opened up for Baby Rose. Similar artists are Janae Eiko, her, Summer Walker, Snow Allegra. Top markets right now are New York, LA, Houston, Atlanta, and Toronto. And from a following standpoint, in terms of just like audience, she has a solid following. And I think this is something that we wanted to do just because I feel like a lot of our core audience are like independent artists are kind of in a similar boat. So, 7.5K followers on Instagram, which is her biggest platform, 1.3K on Twitter. She's about 900 likes on Facebook. YouTube is small but growing, about 2.5K. Her TikTok followers are small, but she's leaning in. And then she's about 2,000 monthly listeners. So the reason we're doing this kind of just like kind of ideation session is like we wanted to let the audience kind of know like how we approach a lot of these marketing meetings. Like we'll get like a one sheet, right? We haven't met the artist yet sometimes. And let's say we hear the music, but sometimes we have to like kind of ideate on the spot, just come up with ideas and kind of spitball ideas on what's happening. So with that, we're gonna actually work on a mock digital plan. So we're gonna share that with you guys in a second. Real quick. Brandon, if you could share that. Cool. So we're gonna share this with the audience later on. But some of the things that we know about this artist right now is that she released a single called Missed Calls about 2 months ago, called Missed Calls. It was about 20,000 YouTube views. And now within the next 4 weeks, she's about to release another single called Solace. So I wanted to, get the group together, do some ideation, and kind of show like the audience like how we approach some of these like marketing strategies. Some of the things that we know, like I said, these are the top markets. Audience is leaning in towards 18 to 25, which is about 60% of the core audience. And then her audience primarily is women, which is about 75%. So these are some of the things that we know about her. And then, I want to kind of pick everyone's brain, and everyone had a chance to see this a little bit and kind of see like what some of the strategies we can kind of implement leading into like the next release. Oh, what are some of the things that she's an R&B artist, right? Mm-hmm. What would you recommend maybe more so, let's say on the Facebook end? She just put a single out called Missed Calls. We have some time, we're working the record. But what are some of the things you probably would like to implement maybe on the Instagram side?
I think on the Instagram side, I think I would really drive focus towards making sure that her story is pretty active, maintaining an active social calendar. Definitely incorporate some lives in there. I think if there's any B-roll, it's always good to maybe put together some repurposed content, something that we can maybe put on IGTV. If we're living in the world and the universe of what we're currently in, which is self-imposed quarantine, I definitely think that using that platform and those two features are key towards really connecting more with her core base. Mm-hmm. This is kind of outside of Instagram, but an Instagram integration I think that can be implemented is there's a company called Community. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. Kind of jumping off of the coattails of the Missed Calls record and the Solace, I think it'd be important to really try to drive a little bit more attention towards Missed Calls before going into Solace. I think that phone number could be a bridge. And then with that, we can use that phone number to send that same content that we might be making on Instagram and directing it to her core. Usually the core followers will be the first early adopters to a platform like Community. So,
Sure.
obviously, if you're not familiar with Unity, it's a phone number that artists can use, celebrities can use to interact directly with fans. It allows them to be the first ones on the ground for any new information, any new assets, any new content. And I would use that as a driver and funnel some of that stuff so that can integrate directly into Instagram. Affix like a text number onto her Instagram. So if people don't want to just direct message, but want to directly text her, they'll be able to directly text her right through Instagram.
Yeah, I like that. Their community is really dope. I know that they're very selective, but there's some other apps called like Textful, which is a cool app that you can use as well. So definitely the missed calls. I love that kind of integration. Anyone have any other ideas for like Instagram? Rachel?
I love that you just mentioned community. I think that is something that we've certainly been leveraging a lot with our artists as well. In addition to, IGTV, I think it would be really useful too for her to get online, identify. Right now, I noticed that I think it said 60% or a lot of her audience is in between that 16 to 20 range. So certainly, using her insights, tap into who are those super fans, like back your winners. I don't care if you have 20 fans or 500 fans. I think that it's so important to, identify those people and, hop on IG Live, go live with those fans, and then, talk to them and use that as an opportunity to really connect with them. And then you can always repurpose and share that content, because chances are if they had a question, there's, another fan their age is also going to have that exact same question. So I think that could be really useful.
For sure. And obviously there's like a gap between missed calls and solace. So Blaire, like what are your thoughts on kind of just like creating different iterations of content around missed calls?
I definitely think maybe there could be like a whole nother version that maybe just lives on YouTube or on IGTV that's like an acoustic version, or maybe even to grow her audience a little, she teams up with someone like Masego who can like play his sax along with her and create like a whole new version that's not necessarily on DSPs. And I think if she had been on tour with Baby Rose, I'm sure she'd perform that song. So maybe they cut that, put it on YouTube too as a whole separate thing. I think definitely like having different iterations and carrying it throughout. When does the next song come out? In May?
Yeah.
Kind of gives it more longevity and gives it a longer lifespan.
For sure. So like maybe we can, she released the song, the video in January. Let's say she puts out a acoustic version let's say next week or something,
right?
And then puts out like a remix version of that the week after.
Or maybe even to engage fans, she does like some sort of contest where people can send in their own verse, and like that could mix later in time.
I like that. Chris Castro, you've been big on obviously the influencer side. Is there something that you kind of see where she can kind of lean in? Not just Instagram, but like just across the board. Miss Call.
So I'm really big on advertising. So considering that Instagram is our biggest platform, I would probably run boosted ads, boosted posts on our page, swipe ups, dark ads, with the click-through link being the YouTube video, since that's the only piece of asset we have right now. I target similar artists like the ones we have mentioned there. I noticed that on the plan, 60% of our audience is from 18 to 25. So I'd also target females 18 to 25 that follow similar artists to her on Instagram, with the click-through link being going to the YouTube video, since that's the only piece of content we have on the plan. And then we only have a $1,500 budget. So I guess there goes the budget.
And just to add to that too, one thing that's also interesting too, just if you wanted to stage and stagger out that spend to really just see fans engage in the content, and then you can create lookalike audiences that are super targets, only people that have the same demographics and data of people who engage in those ads.
100%. Castro, like going back to you guys about advertising, like, I think that's why I wanted to kind of pinpoint the audience factor, is because, understanding your core audience is so key, because, you just don't want to just do advertising and just kind of just throw your music out there expecting it to stick. So understand your insights across the board is so important.
I think there's like two philosophies of advertising. I think there's some people that just keep the targeting as wide as possible just to run up the views as much as they can. But I think, especially when you're dealing with an artist like that's this early in her career, I think it's better to to apply like specific targeting and go after people that you think are likely to convert into fans. And though you may get less views for your dollar, you'll get more conversion than you'll see going wide. Because I've seen YouTube backends where it's like R&B singers where like 90% of their audience are males from Ukraine, ages 35 to 44. Like I've seen like crazy stuff on certain people's YouTube. I'm like, no wonder your subscriber count is so low. It's just you're not hitting your target market.
Yeah.
Right.
I definitely agree.
So
like,
you make a great point about that. What were you saying, Chris?
No, I definitely agree, especially with smaller budgets, YouTube and TrueView and all that shit. Like on the back end, I mean, you can tell when people are gaming the system because the cheaper views are obviously overseas because that's just how it goes. But when it comes to Instagram, you can get more bang for your buck. And then especially if you stage out the spend with certain creative assets. So, you know, like, okay, week one, these are the assets I'm going. Maybe it's the pop-up like Christian said, or maybe it's a link to the video and just stage the spend with the audiences with the unique creative assets.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, it's kind of understanding the goals because, you know, since sometimes it's about, let's say on YouTube, we're trying to optimize views, but just, I think there's good views and like not so good views, right? So I think early on, I try to, at least for the more independent kind of emerging artists, we try to focus more so on US only because we know those views can convert. You know, sometimes it's about optics for more often than not, but if you're a developing artist, you want to really focus on conversion versus just like
it's
getting it
possible. And so the worst thing ever is you can tell when because a video will have a bunch of views and no comments, no shares, no likes. That's how you know that like, okay, you just bought views and like that help the ego, but that doesn't help like get your music out there or create engaged super fans that will translate from online to offline to merch, et cetera, et cetera.
One thing I always say is, you know, fake fans do not turn into real streams. So, you know, plain, you know, period. So you know, to echo everybody's points here, it's so important that you definitely hone in on who is going to be that engaged audience back to backing your winners. And then, you know, be there from that. They're there for you from day one. So be there for them from day one. And then you can always grow those markets.
Yeah.
For sure. No, that's super important. And then also speaking of ads, like I think it's important to kind of A/B test ads. So, you know, sometimes we get stuck in just using the same ads. So I think it's important to kind of repurpose fan content. Like maybe if you have content on TikTok or, you know, or Triller to kind of use that. Cause I feel like the UGC content tends to like react more, engage more with people versus like something that looks super stylized and looks like an ad itself. So that's just something to be mindful of. Dope. So we got Instagram, some of the things. Any other additions? Chris, do you see anything or
on Instagram? This is DM chat sticker that I kind of push on all my artists. It's the sticker that you place in your story, and then the first 30 fans to click it get put in a DM chat with the artist. So it's a good way to kind of build a relationship with like your super engaged fanatic fans who are like, it's like a little more personalized.
For sure. I also like the Q&A. What were you saying, Chris?
I just also, it's very important too, when you look at whether it be Instagram or Facebook, that you look at the back-end analytics of your page and you see when most of your users on, because the way all these algorithm works is they release it to a certain amount of your audience and then they see how they react and then they release it to more and more. So if you're releasing your content at a time when half of your audience is asleep or something like that, it's very important that you look at your analytics and then use that to inform, like you said before we got to this sheet, like whatever that posting schedule, calendar, asset, all that stuff is, all those times and dates they're all thought of. They're not all just random times.
No, that's super important. Especially the timing of it, just understanding. But it's an interesting time too, just because I feel like everyone's like a lot of the audience is skewed, like this timing is skewed, like just because everyone's on in weird times now.
Yeah.
It's like there's only day and night. There's no Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's either day or night.
Yeah. We don't know what day is. Tomorrow is another day.
Right.
Tomorrow is Monday, but tomorrow is another day. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I like the IG sticker, kind of the Q&As are cool. I feel like, because you know, if you do that, I don't recommend to do it every day, but I definitely do it like maybe like once a week. And you can ask different things like your recommendations, like what do you recommend on Netflix, or what do you recommend me cooking, or just things that are a little bit more lifestyle and relatable, and then that can be really fun about connecting with the fans. Have you been seeing that kind of more kind of Q&As on IG story across the board? Yeah, same. Dope. Anything else before we move on to another platform?
Just to go back to the chat sticker, particularly as it relates to right now, Instagram is, pushing this stay-at-home sticker. So if you are tuning in and you're an artist, certainly encourage you to leverage that sticker and share it and share your location and, add in your music sticker. That way everybody can really connect from across the globe, and you can get your music out there as well to new audiences.
For sure. And speaking of stickers, I feel like artists don't necessarily use the music sticker too often. And I'm always pushing artists to use that sticker because, that's, obviously it's the best way. We can share like a story or a Spotify. Obviously we can share through Spotify, but definitely use that sticker if fans are using it, for sure. You want to definitely have the artist kind of lean in. Dope. So we have Instagram kind of mapped out some of the things that we could do. Let's look at YouTube. So YouTube is another obviously like important platform. We talked about like an acoustic version. I think for artists right now, while they're at home, they should be vlogging at some capacity. What are your thoughts on that?
Vlogging?
Yeah, like vlogging right now, because it's I think people should kind of vlog this kind of experience, like how like what maybe they're creating an album or something, or just kind of like creating the recording the process.
Yeah, especially it depends on like what your production capabilities are, obviously. But if you vlog it, you can kind of, even with Instagram and everything, you should create some type of a countdown to release, just so people are anticipating it, just so they're happy, just so they're aware when it comes out. Not, oh, I know it comes out at the end of the month. Like, no, I know it comes out on the 28th because it's been in every vlogs, in every post, all that stuff. But vlogs, I'm a big fan of that. I think just in the marketplace, like Dead does a great job at that, where he does these daily vlogs, and it also will grow your YouTube audience. So, one of the big things I'm trying to relay here at Republic is like, YouTube channels shouldn't just be videos, like music videos. You have to put other content up there just so people are used to coming to your page and there's engagement, your meta tagging, all that, your page rank will go up and all that. So it can't just be music videos, and vlogs are a great cheap way of putting content up there to grow the interaction and the connection with your fan base.
Right. Yeah. Because we always tell, like, I think we've experienced this too with a lot of artists where you may have like, let's say 1 million subscribers, but if you're not engaging or active on it, like the channel is kind of dormant.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you have the opportunity to have a community tab, definitely be active on it. But you have to really treat it as like a social platform you kind of use daily. Yeah. Right.
I think too, like if it's an art, like this is a new artist that no one knows, so vlogging is going to help people get to know their personality better. If they're funny or they're interesting or have some sort of talent too, like fans are going to rip that and put it on other platforms, which is going to help grow their audience. Or if they're into other things like cooking or like anime or anything, like, talking about movies, like they could kind of grow their audience by going into those other categories and kind of taking over those audiences.
I think that's a great point too, because from a creative content development standpoint, when I sit down with an artist, what I look at is like their vlogs, what their hobbies are. So you could vlog something and someone realize like, oh, like Ski Mask loves gaming, loves Call of Duty. So when you're spinning off and trying to create original content, you know that there's an interest there. So like those vlogs can really be incubation and like the launch pad for so much other things, whether it be dancing, whether it be cooking, whether it be fitness, whether it be gaming. It's like, yeah, that's the home base for all that.
And if she has, one thing that we've been using a lot with our artists, particularly with like new music videos, is YouTube now offers something called YouTube Premiere, where fans can premiere their own music videos. And, usually a couple hours beforehand, you can share that link with your fans, invite them into the chat room. You can chat one-on-one with them. And I think that it's just another really great way for, back in my day, I remember watching the VH1 and the MTV music videos, so I think that this is the 2020 version of that. And it's been something that's really been working, no matter, how big or small your page is. that's something to really leverage. And then also reaction videos.
Yeah.
Back to Blaire's point, especially if you're an artist starting out, let's not forget too, SEO is also attached to this, search engine optimization. So as a new artist, you can really grow your content with, we work a lot for 24K Golden with Cam from Cuff Boys. And, it's just cool to get like another real reaction. And I think that that's another really neat thing that artists can certainly leverage.
And on YouTube too, and Instagram, I think covers are a big thing too. If it's an artist that kind of sounds similar to Summer Walker, it's a great way that top of the funnel conversion where if you're a fan of Summer Walker and you smash that cover, then you're going to get a whole new fan base who came for Summer or staying for Jade. And then also if you, that on YouTube, like, especially with Rachel was saying about the meta tagging, you can tag those videos with Summer Walker, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I think of all platforms, like on Facebook and all those other platforms, like you kind of find the video, but on YouTube, if your stuff is meta tagged right, the video kind of finds you. So it's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I want to just kind of go into like meta tagging real quick. So I think especially when it comes to like hashtags and tagging, like it's so important to really understand like what you're tagging, like how specific it is versus how general it is.
Yeah,
and that's
there's a great tool out there. When I was back at All Def, we even used it on that scale when we were releasing 50 to 80 videos a week called vidIQ. It's a YouTube edition where you can put keywords that are similar and like it'll show you the ranking of that keywords, because especially keywords, as I'm sure everyone knows, it's like how often is that keyword being used. So you can find unique keywords that will bring a bunch of traction to that video, and then that video is always associated with that keyword.
No, that's so key. And then even to your point about like the content with like the covers, I think with her in particular, like you said, she's similar to like Summer Walker. I think maybe she does like a mashup or something of a song that's popular.
We saw great success a couple of years. I mean, it was before I was at Republic with like Kiana Lede, which is that company like smashed it and like
I think that's dope. And then as far as like the content on the platform, I know you can create different playlists, right? So one can be like, let's say if she, for example, let's say she likes gaming, that could be one thing, or like more lifestyle stuff. So there could be different, obviously, like different like verticals for that.
Yeah.
Olu, like, what are some of the things like maybe we can also add to the YouTube strategy on your end, you think?
So I think using YouTube mobilely has started to become more of a relevant thing, more of a prevalent thing. For me personally, with more of our rising artists, we've been really focusing on using the story feature within YouTube. It's allowed us to get X amount of conversions from artists using the mobile app, or just fans using the mobile app and coming through it just like they would on Instagram. And we've been putting a lot of our releases within the story function so that people are able to directly go straight to any piece of content that we just put out. The good part about the story feature is it lasts about 7 days. The bad part about the story feature is if you take something down and you want to repurpose that same piece of content, YouTube will not allow you to for some odd reason. So let's say you had a cover that our artist Jade did, and we didn't like the copy. So we wanted to put up a different piece of copy. It won't allow you to use that. So when using that story feature, be certain that you have, a video in there to tag directly back to the video so that there's no friction. Meta tag's very important, and make sure that it's a striking piece of content. I mean, it's also a great opportunity to repurpose content that you would use on Instagram anyway, without having to overextend yourself or spend anything else on creative assets. That's been a very strong point for us on the Asylum side, really utilizing that story function.
No, that's super key. And obviously, we talked about meta tagging, looking at insights, and even like the thumbnail. I mean, the thumbnail is so important, especially like making sure the artist is visible in your thumbnail. People don't realize, you can't be like that mysterious artist sometimes, because people are just curious to see, they want to know, and like really get a call to action, like, hey, I want to click on this. So maybe we could talk about like how important thumbnails are, just because we don't realize how often that can optimize the video.
I can go. So especially with emails, like the one thing to keep in mind too is like the picture to text ratio. Because on Facebook, for instance, they have a tool on the Facebook backend that will you upload your thumbnail and tell you if it's too big. But some ads won't be ran as effectively if the text is too big. But what I like to do on YouTube is always make sure that whatever the photo is, or it's kind of big and illustrated. Right. Thumbnails are just as like title. So
yeah, I agree with Chris. One thing that we've seen success for our artists is having like a good face shot. That seems to always perform better across the board, because fans want to see what you look like, and then that just, for whatever reason, that seems to perform much better than a landscape shot or the back of an artist or whatnot. For
sure. The thumbnail is key, and then I think also with like what I've seen in the past, especially as emerging artists, making sure you're going into the comments and just like responding to people.
For sure.
I think the comments too is like, it's a great place to learn about what fans like, it's just to study and seeing what they like, what one is. Like a lot of times the fans will be asking like where their favorite song is, and you'll see like maybe a lot of fans have the same favorite and they're waiting for that video. So it kind of, you can put that on your radar for later, or they can say, or they're saying like what they don't like about this. Like, it's just a great place to take notes and kind of like hold on to these thoughts for like later on in your rollout.
For sure. I know I find myself watching a video, listening to the video, and reading the comments.
Yeah.
Really going in.
Yeah, all the time.
That's
sometimes I read through the comments. I'm like, yeah, I feel the same way. Hell yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Also, going back to being that we do have a $1,500 budget, we want to make sure that we're repurposing as much as we can, and it's still creating a fun user experience. So I've seen this happen with a couple times where you have a funny comment. Who's to say you couldn't also throw that into a IG story vertical and then also swipe up to your music video? And that's a simple, free way to repurpose content and get fans engaged and over to your YouTube channel from Instagram.
Yeah, I love the idea of kind of repurposing the content on the comments. That's dope. And then you can pin a comment on your YouTube channel, which is key, especially if you have a new video. And real quick before we leave, just kind of best practices. So like the description, right? So a lot of people just don't spend time in the description, like really like making sure like that's optimized. So obviously adding a link to the smart link or the URL or whatever, but making sure we hashtag, right? Hashtagging is key on the description. So I think typically we put like the artist name, the name of the song, and something that's related to the album or something. And then the lyrics is important. Just really making sure it's full, and obviously links to their socials. So just want to kind of reiterate that for artists, just making sure you keep your descriptions as detailed as possible on YouTube. Dope. We're moving along. We have a little plan over here. Castro, where'd you go? Where did Castro go?
So they have
the dip. Okay.
Castro being
so quick. So we did Instagram, YouTube. How about TikTok? So TikTok, we can go, obviously just for the next 5 minutes. What are some of the things you're kind of seeing and maybe some best practices? I think for artists that's brand new, has a small following, I always recommend just creating content to things that are trending. I think that could be a fun way. It just has to obviously be on brand with the artist, right? Because all the artists don't lean in. So we just got to make sure it makes sense for the artists. And I think hashtags are important, especially when you post, making sure because it triggers the algorithm, at least on that end. And then I think the TikTok live stream is interesting too. I haven't seen too much usage of it, but Rachael, like you said that you started using it for 24 Golden, right?
Yeah, 24K Golden has been using it in addition to all the other live stream options, and it's been just another live option to be able to connect with your fans. Another thing I like to mention when it comes to TikTok is there's certainly two sides, right? So a lot of our artists will have that TikTok moment and they don't even have their own profile yet. So I think that whenever we're working with artists, it's certainly you know, in addition to your music being on TikTok, it's also important that you yourself are on TikTok. You know, it might take a minute to lean into it and get comfortable, but then as you get verified and you're on there more, then to your point, Drew, you can certainly be getting on there 5 minutes a day, doing your own videos that are trending so that fans can both get to know you, but then also, you know, maybe one every 6 videos, one of those videos is to your music specifically so that fans can engage with you in 2 different lenses.
For sure.
To that point, too, I think it's important to really utilize the filters and some of the tools that are within the platform also. Just using an example from the Asylum roster, we have an artist by the name of Kite. I'm not certain if anybody remembers this game when you do this, like what's this right here?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh, save mine, or you do a chop. Well, he used a filter that allowed it to be foggy, so you couldn't really see what was there. And then all of a sudden it like basically opened up to it being this. And then his song played. And I think that was really genius of him. So we're actually taking that and repurposing that to not only push, but also to use as an ad as well, because it's something that's organic that he created.
No, that's super important.
I think the subject of people's childhood. Yeah.
No, that's key.
Yeah.
Blaire, what are your thoughts? So maybe just one thing that you think, because I feel like there's different trends like how-tos and kind of like different things that artists can do outside of just sharing their music, maybe more lifestyle stuff.
Yeah, I was also going to say making sure that you're sharing, like if you have an artist that's not on TikTok, but there are fans that are using their music, making sure to share that on other platforms just to let people know that their music is active on TikTok, at least if they're not yet. Like I know like a lot of stuff on TikTok goes crazy on Twitter and Instagram. So just making sure that you're not just keeping it to TikTok.
Right. Yeah. It's important to kind of repurpose all that content. And yeah, you can create, you know, if you like, for example, if you're like a developing artist, I feel like there's a lot of like TikTokers that maybe have 20,000 followers, but they want to build, you know, their network. You know, you could reach out to them on the side and be like, hey, if you have a budget, let's say of $300, maybe you give them $30 if you do this video, you know. And I think don't really think big tier in terms of like influencers, really build like an influencer network that's small. And you can use those, you can work with those people again. I think it's important to kind of identify those type of people, especially if they created content to your music already.
And the micro platforms too, you know, not to rule out the dub smashes. You might get more for your buck working it on a grassroots level with those other platforms, and then eventually, you know, leveling up to a TikTok or Triller once more awareness is being brought around the song or the piece of content that you're promoting. So I think that that's also important too, keeping your eye on the other platforms that allow people to share this content.
Cool. Anyone else before we on to the next one?
One last thing. If you do get a bunch of content, make a supercut. Throw that joint on YouTube, or make a supercut and give it to somebody who has an audience on YouTube and allow them to spread your message.
Yeah, I would just add too, I think of all the platforms on there, when it comes to like play, that TikTok is so new where you're kind of building you're driving the car as you're building it, because there's new formats, there's new stuff that pops up every day. So like, every strategy doesn't fit for everybody, especially on TikTok, because TikTok's the one platform where uniqueness and creativity, it's a free world for that. So just try anything and everything and see what sticks.
Yeah, and I think the strategy is that there's really no strategy sometimes, right?
That's a good strategy to have.
Because to quantify, you know, what is trending, it could be like a real no sound, but for some reason kids are just sharing and they and what I'm seeing is like different kind of iterations of a song. So let's say you have an official sound, but now someone created their own version to it, and then someone creates their own version to it. So there's like multiple sounds.
I guess you could go back and look at Vine, because TikTok is basically the new Vine. So Vines might work.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I've definitely been seeing that, obviously, with with Megan Stallion, and everyone's kind of been on that wave. But every day is a trend. I mean, there's something trending new. I know they have this whole being at home, what's it call it? Happy at home hashtag, which is dope. And I'm glad that a lot of the platforms are really leaning in on like being creative at home. So that's super dope. Cool. So we'll move on to the next platform. I feel like, Twitter and Facebook, it really depends on the artist. I think as a developing artist, it's, if you're not active on Twitter, you can't, it's going to be hard. Right. Blaire, I know you're big on Twitter. What are some of the things I feel like have been effective on your end, or like you feel like best practices for an artist?
I think just outside of sharing your music, you can join in on kind of like trending or popular conversations that are happening in order to get people to know your name more. Once they see you chiming in on that topic, they might want to like look into you and see what you're about. I think also if you're someone like, we have artists on our label who don't really want to use Twitter because they just like don't feel like they know what they want to say. So we have artists that are just like interacting with their fans a lot, like quote retweeting them and responding to them just to keep them active on Twitter. That's a way I think to work with artists who are like a little bit more shy and don't really want to like talk about their opinions on Twitter.
Right.
Twitter's tough.
I like that kind of obviously putting your putting your spin or like your insight into like a trending topic. How about you, Chris?
Twitter is just a tough one just because I feel like most times when people blow up on Twitter, it's because either their YouTube, their music, or it's a trickle down effect. Like, and I mean, unless you're, I mean, there's ways to say controversial stuff or do like a crazy rant or something like that. But I think just joining on those trending conversations and having something insightful and not just like, yo, this is lit or something like that, like adding value to a conversation or unique perspective or unique insight or even like starting a unique conversation, like, I don't know, Neo versus Dream, who knows, just starting these unique conversations and then having articulate points to defend that.
Yeah, I feel like it's all about just conversation. How do you create an open dialogue with your fans and ask them,
I think similar to what we were, chatting about in the YouTube comments, where you really get you could really get to see what is the instant fan reaction. You're going to see a lot of that on Twitter as well. So it's just a different platform to, analyze your digital chatter. Fans aren't going to lie. They're going to keep it real all the time. So that's another opportunity for you to see what are people saying about, and then plan your marketing and your music around that as well.
Cool. And what are your thoughts on just like hashtags? Like obviously like everyone has different kind of approach to hashtags for artists, but I think at least on my end, like we'll hashtag according to like the album or like something in relation to the artist, but we'll sometimes we'll just hashtag things that are trending so we can be part of that. That's some of the things that some of the fans, some of the audience is asking right now. In terms of just like best practices on Twitter, obviously like making sure if there's something that you want to drive people to, making sure you pin that tweet. That's important. Video obviously engages really well. So if you have a video, so for her, we can put like a little video clip and drive that to, drive that to the YouTube video, right? To like missed calls. I know Twitter also does like polls. What's your favorite lyric, or stuff like that. Is Olu, is there anything else you feel like we can kind of add to the mix?
Really just consistency in your engagement schedule. So if there's a period of time where you feel like you've gotten some traction with conversation on a platform, you should try to be as strict to sticking to that schedule as possible. One thing that Twitter doesn't really respect is the fall off, so if you're not constantly engaged in that conversation, or at least engaged in a conversation at a particular time, I feel like your engagement won't go as far. I also think it's very important to try to integrate anything that you have on the DSPs within your conversation. So Spotify, making sure that if you are promoting something or leading up to promoting something, making sure that you can find organic ways to share those links directly into conversation, or at least have it present within, you know, your Twitter timeline. I think really just making sure that you're engaged and it's about something that's organic, not just you being a salesman. The last thing people really want to do is just talk to somebody because they know they're eventually going to be sold an album or a single. So the more active you are, the better, I believe.
100%. And, you know, speaking of that, obviously artists, we kind of have to, I think we have to kind of have them kind of choose what platforms to lean on. So if Twitter is the platform that you use regularly, you should lean on it. So I tend to like kind of give artists a rule of 3, focus on 3 and do it really well. And then have supporting platforms that you want to kind of repurpose and share content to, just because like people don't have the bandwidth or time to like do all the platforms. Like you're gonna fail, I feel like, just because of time and, you know.
One thing I've seen also just in terms of like Twitter trends that has worked really well for us is sharing, like kind of seeing what TikTok influencer content is doing the best. And then again, repurposing that on Twitter has been something that's worked really well for us as well.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the content that really reacts are like the memes. You know, the memes are really funny. Just if you have a way to kind of repurpose your music into a meme, definitely do it. Because you want to create reaction and just, you know, sometimes add your kind of like comedic personality to your music sometimes. And I think that always it's a good way to like to kind of show like you're just not one dimensional as an artist. But yeah, the memes are really funny. So dope. So we covered a lot. Jade 7 has a marketing plan.
Wink, wink.
When's her music coming out? I can't wait to tune in.
May 31st, you know. Solace. And she's a make-believe artist. So real quick, so we're gonna go into questions in about 5 minutes. I wanted to go into Spotify real quick, and obviously Apple Music, but Spotify, I know there's a bunch of things you can do just on the playlist side. So if you have access to Spotify for artists, make sure you get that as an artist, right? So you can look at your insights daily. But what are some things we could do to kind of build, you know, let's say an artist, let's say she starts a playlist. Let's say she starts the quarantine playlist, right? Q time with Jade. What are some maybe some ideas that we can build around that?
I think she can put in artists that are similar to her into that playlist so that people listening to that, and then also incorporate some of her music into it. So people are listening to it for like, I forget who are her similar, like for HER, Summer Walker, Snow Allegra, but then they're getting bits of her and realizing that she's kind of similar to, and also becoming a fan of her music.
I like that.
Also, one thing that we like to do is a collaborative playlist, especially if you're starting out. So, you know, adding her catalog in, certainly like Blaire said, adding in like-minded artists and music that she likes, because not only is it giving fans an opportunity to, you know, basically see what you're inspired by and what you're listening to, but then they can also add in their own songs that they like, and again, just collaborate. And that's going to help both, you know, grow that playlist following, but then also possibly, you know, increase your artist following on Spotify as well. So you get to kind of double bang for your buck.
I love that. Yeah, I think the collaborative playlists are pretty big right now. You know, you gotta leave it up to the fans to kind of add to it, but I feel like that's just the best way to grow it. Especially if it's something that's if you're like small and you're growing it. Because I always tell like artists that it's important to really build your followers on Spotify, because, you know, you don't want just people to obviously just stream your music. You want people to follow you, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's huge. What else can we do with the playlist? I know, obviously, like collaborating with maybe different influencers, maybe, or like not influencers, but like people that are willing to kind of host it or curate it. I think that could be cool. Let's say you have like a collaborator, like, oh, I want to do a takeover for this playlist this week. Maybe that could be a cool idea.
I love brand takeovers. Those are great.
Yeah, that's huge. Cool. So, and then last but not least, Facebook. So Facebook obviously is a little bit different for every artist. Some more of the catalog artists have bigger Facebook presence. But I feel like Facebook, at least from an advertising standpoint, is probably like the most effective in terms of reaching your audience, right? I think it has like one of the best advertising tools with that and IG, since they're, you know, one and the same. I tend to like repurpose content on Facebook. That's what I tend to do with some of the artists I work with. Always pinning, you know, the thing that's most important. But is there anything that you, or, you know, some of the artists that you're doing, from like lives to, you know, like acoustic content, or, you know, that you can think of?
Repurposing
Rachel?
content, yeah. Repurposing content is certainly one that we do as well. And then also, depending on the artist, you know, kind of reserving the Facebook Live space for, you know, maybe once a week they're gonna pop on there and do an acoustic, or, you know, kind of like a stripped down version of whatever they're performing, has been something that we've seen work really well on Facebook, because again, it's a different content experience than if they're going on IG Live or if they're going on YouTube. So I think as long as you're mixing it up and giving fans a different thing to see, that's really worked really well for us.
Yeah, I like it when artists kind of like break down lyrics, or maybe there's a way, it's like some, because a lot of the short form stuff is obviously on Instagram, but I feel like a lot of the long form content can live on Facebook, and you can really go into detail, because, you know, video is huge on Facebook and people have the capability to share content there. So if you have your long form content, I would definitely post it and upload it natively, versus kind of just posting a link. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
I think with Facebook and YouTube in particular, I always say that YouTube is a lean back experience. That means when you go there, you're there to watch videos for a longer set of time. Like the watch time on YouTube is probably triple the amount on Facebook. Facebook is a lean in experience. So you need to be something that's super engaging. You can catch someone's attention in the first like 1 to 5 seconds. And whatever you're making, the feeling should make them want to hit that share button. Because just like the algorithms on every other platform, if it's not engaging content that doesn't get out there, it's not going to reach, it's not going to have legs. So Facebook is just one of those that like very shareable content.
100%. And, you know, someone on the chat mentioned about just Facebook groups. Obviously the groups are big, but like I said, like anything that you lean in, you really have to manage it. So if you're an artist that really utilizes Facebook, then I think from a group standpoint, like if these are your super fans, like you really have to like manage that, right?
Yeah,
I think groups are great.
And also on Facebook, there's this feature called Watch Party. So let's say you do have an album, a music video coming out, you could have your super fans watch the video with you, and you guys can react in the comments and blah blah blah. So there are some good features on Facebook, but it's just not as robust, I think, as other platforms for music.
And I think one thing that we, you know, to the Facebook groups too, if we have, for a lot of our artists that are touring all the time, you know, it's just another opportunity. In addition to your bands in town or your song kick, you can also create a Facebook group, a Facebook event, tap into artists that way, tag other like-minded artists. And again, that's only going to help build your, you know, your Facebook audience and your advertising audience, so that you can always retarget those fans moving forward.
Yeah. And also, just sorry to keep on coming in, but just like Instagram and Facebook, obviously they're owned by the same people. So you can cross-pollinate that data and insights and use audiences that you made on Instagram to market to Facebook and vice versa. And so that's a great way. Let's say you have a huge Facebook following, you want to grow Instagram or vice versa. That's a good tool to have.
No, 100%. Olu, Blaire, do you want to add anything else? This is probably the last section before we go to questions, but yeah, I appreciate you guys working on this on a Sunday. I know this was a cool creative session, kind of showing just the Digilogue community, how we kind of, you know, during our marketing meeting, sometimes we were given like an hour and we really have to like go in and really just kind of flush ideas out. And this is kind of the way to do it, where you have like different marketing minds and just music minds just kind of come together and just kind of add their input. And this is how a marketing plan, you know, a marketing digital plan comes together. So we're going to send this and share this with everybody as a template, so you guys can see that.
Are you sure you don't want to add MySpace real quick, or Zynga?
Friendster?
Wow.
You beat me too.
Before we go, is there anything I'm missing? Or is there anything you would like to add?
Is there anything you would like us to add?
I think it's important to really scour for like regional content channels. So like every region has their own version of a say cheese. I think really getting in tune with those channels are very important. Usually if they have an Instagram, they may also have a Facebook and as well as a Twitter.
And I would add too, like when it comes to the platform,
Artists that are similar.
oh shit. With the platforms, my bad. With the platforms, there are some opportunities where you can do crossover sharing of posts, but like don't get into it thinking that one strategy for Instagram is going to work for all platforms, because that never is the case, and it has to be unique. If you get lucky, there are some areas that like you can save some time and repurpose content, but your strategy has to be robust for each platform, and it's not one size fits all.
For sure. Now, I think that's super important. You can't be lazy and just kind of just like repost a video and expect it to do well.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but it can't be the only part. Like, you can't repost an Instagram video to Facebook and like, oh, Facebook is done, or Instagram to YouTube, and like, yeah, it has to be some uniqueness.
100%. And quick thing with also YouTube too, like I know for like a lot of independent artists, there's a lot of like multi-channel networks, like, you know, Rap Nation and, you know, R&B Nation, Escape Track. So I would definitely reach out to those platforms. You could definitely reach, you know, they help service your music. You know, you can send them the lyrics. Obviously, they have their own curators, but, you know, I think something you would definitely want to lean in.
Yep.
Oh, you know what, Drew? I'm glad that you said lyrics. Just to put into the YouTube category too, again, as an artist, any artist, but especially if you're starting out, lyric videos, tapping into those YouTube multi-channel networks and having them also add lyric videos. I mean, I know I'll go on there as a fan just to discover new music. And oftentimes I see this a lot with our new urban signings where, you know, they're only releasing to SoundCloud and YouTube before they're even thinking about releasing to Spotify and the other major DSPs. So that's also a strategy to consider depending on what your repertoire and what your goals are.
Right. And also, as I think developing artists, whether you're, let's say you're like a rapper, for example, don't ignore the other, you know, emerging sites. You know, I think it's super important to lean in on like Audio Mac, right? My mixtapes, even Dat Piff, Spinrilla, like all these kind of, if you're a rapper, I think it's important. And even R&B on Audio Mac, I think Audio Mac is huge. Like they have a big mobile presence. I think they're an amazing platform for emerging artists, and a lot of the big label artists are on those platforms as well. So definitely lean in and don't ignore it. So first off, I just want to thank you guys for the, for this whole online panel. I really appreciate everybody adding their insight. We're going to share this doc with everyone. In the interim, we're going to ask for some questions. We're going to ask some questions from people. So let me see here. Let me ask one question. After a marketing meeting, who does what? How are tasks divided in your teams? Can anyone speak on that?
Whoever's got the most ideas.
Well, maybe we could talk about like structure. So usually we deal with a product manager, right? So they're kind of like the quarterback for like the marketing, and then we help kind of obviously work hand in hand with them. But, you know, everyone has, if it's digital, we're going to lead it, but we're going to like obviously integrate all the departments in that case. Anything you guys want to add to that? No?
Pretty political.
What happened?
I said sometimes that can be political.
True. But yeah, I think in any team, like it's all about kind of divide and conquer. So definitely make sure that's important for your management teams, or if you have teams that you're working with now.
It is important that everyone, like, even though everyone might become from different departments, that everyone, like, there has to be a plan that everyone buys into, and like from start to finish, and teamwork makes the dream work, as corny as that sounds.
Yeah, you know, all welcome all ideas. No idea is a bad idea. I think you should explore it, test it out, and see if it works. If it doesn't, then on to the next, right?
Also, especially in the digital space, like, yes, you know, we obviously, everybody at this panel, you know, are expertise is in digital, but digital has taken over far and wide, obviously in the last few years. So everybody on your team has at least some level of digital experience. So I think having that project manager, but usually how we work is we'll all kind of huddle with ideas and then decide as a group, okay, what do we think works, what doesn't work, and then divide and conquer off of that.
No, that's super important. Let me ask a few more questions. In terms of video, do you prefer the YouTube video links or uploading the file on Twitter? Native file, like a clip of it.
Yeah, file for sure.
Definitely
I think it
file.
depends.
What are your thoughts, Olu?
I mean, I definitely think that the file is more important because it allows more curiosity to be built, right? So it's easy to share with a partner that might be able to spread it out further. But, you know, depending on what stage you're in, a link might be better. But if you're a burgeoning artist, the file's the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
What we'll do is oh, sorry, Drew.
No, what are you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, usually if we, you know, to Olu's point, I think that usually what we'll try to do is perhaps share like a, you know, 5 to 10 second clip and then drive to whatever the YouTube video link is. That way you get a little bit of a taste teasing it out, but then they're still gonna click on the YouTube link to get the entire full video experience.
Oh, for sure. You want to do like a call to action and drive it to somewhere. That's key. Someone asked, what is the best way to upload your lyrics on IG stories? So there's a website called Mixmatch. I think you could upload your lyrics there. We can drop down a link. But usually, hold on one sec. I know Facebook has a functionality. I'll drop down a chat. But usually when you ingest your songs, I mean, it should be automatic. But does anyone else have any suggestions for IG story? Sorry, Music Match. I'm gonna drop the lyric. I'm gonna drop this in the group chat so you guys see it. The lyrics. 1 second.
I would just make sure that if you're working with a distributor, that you're in tune with how they're ingesting any of your content or assets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are certain distributors out there, like I mean, anybody that you can really think of, whether it's DistroKid or if it's STEM, if you're in constant conversation with them, and if you use a little bit of savvy, because sometimes they make themselves scarce, it's really important to make your demands be known and make sure that they're aware of how important that IG lyrics and lyric ingestion overall is to your overall strategy. I think when you approach them with a more nuanced approach as strategy, they'll understand you know how important this is to you, and they'll get it done for you. Yeah,
100%. I think you have to be active with your distributor rep, so it's important that they obviously ingest not only just the music, obviously the proper lyrics, and then at the same point making sure you also have a genius profile. Make sure your lyrics are updated there as well.
Make sure your lyrics are right too. I know that sounds silly, but I'll see oftentimes a lot of, you know, there'll be typos in lyrics, and then to Olu's point, make sure that you're ingesting that absolutely correctly, because it's a lot more challenging to have to go back and undo a web.
100%. Someone asked where beginners can learn about ads. I mean, I learned about ads on YouTube, so that's just me. But I think also you can log in and just kind of experiment. Running Facebook ads yourself. They're pretty self-explanatory. Are just really testing things out. It might be just, you know, trial and error, but on YouTube it's pretty straightforward. Anybody have suggestions?
Yeah, I would say it's just trial and error. I mean, obviously, the thing with both of those platforms is you can have a small test budget and just run it trial by error, learn about your ad sets, learn about your targeting pools, and yeah, just run with it. That's how I learned.
Yeah, definitely. And then also too, you know, as an artist, no matter if you're just starting out or, you know, wherever you are in your journey, I think it's certainly important to, you really pay attention to your digital audiences, because that's really going to level the playing field for everything that you're building on top of.
100%. Yeah, Facebook has, different tutorials and stuff. So we could definitely, we'll find some links and then we'll send that over in an email blast to everyone that's subscribed. What else do we have here? How important is a website for an artist? I think it depends. If you are an artist that sells merch, I think it's important.
I think I completely agree with you. The other thing I tell a lot of artists that don't necessarily care about websites per se, I think it's really important that you own your domain name. The only thing you don't, I think you need to own that digital real estate, because you don't want somebody else to own that digital real estate on your behalf. So I think I'm less concerned about having the website and more concerned about make sure that you at least own your domain name, because, I'm sure we can all have experience with just domain wars basically. So that's really important.
Yeah, having a splash page is important.
Yeah, I also think it depends what you are utilizing it for. Like we just saw Gambino drop his album through his website last week or 2 weeks. Yeah, last week. So I think if you're like having exclusive content that lives on your website, then it can be important. Or if you're using that as like a way for people to kind of like all be in one hub together. But yeah, and then I also totally agree about always owning your domain.
100%. That's key. What one person asked, how important are email blasts to fans? I think direct marketing is huge. People don't realize. What are your thoughts on that?
Same. I think it is changing though too with platforms like Community though. Like now it's like more people would prefer to receive texts than emails, or that's what they're going to check more often than not.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good to build your email base, but my only thing is that make sure it's not just a dormant email base, right? Making sure you're updating them with new videos or like new content, things that are just happening. What I experience is about really kind of a healthy balance, because you don't want people to unsubscribe because people get so many emails. So maybe you do a bi-weekly blast. I think that at the very least could be healthy.
And platforms like MailChimp are really good at like helping you monitor how spammy you're coming across that. And just like with A/B testing with paid media, you can A/B test subject line, date you're sending, time you're sending, all that stuff. And then from building that email list, obviously for merch, if you're able to get ticket sale emails, like stuff like that.
For sure, 100%. A few more questions. So I'm talking more so digital. As a digital manager, how are you able to manage so many social platforms for multiple artists?
We don't sleep.
Rachael.
Teasing.
High management.
I personally, I prefer to have a separate phone, which I use specifically for work, so that you can leverage, on Instagram, I believe you're allowed up to, is it 5 handles? Mm-hmm. So bouncing back in between there, making sure that you have a good password saver. I use Dashlane, just to kind of remember all of your passwords and whatnot. That's been really useful for me. I also just noticed that TikTok also seems to be offering that too, where you can log into multiple channels as well, which has been helpful.
For sure. How about you,
Olu? Same, really. Just finding different ways where we could connect on those platforms. I mean, like whether it's TikTok, trying to make sure that we have an opportunity to just connect easier. I guess really for me, it's been really using Hootsuite a lot, Social Blade. I don't really use the separate phone a lot. I usually kind of keep everything on one computer on the Hootsuite, and I kind of run all those accounts through there. But to be honest, there are some artists who aren't really that active and that communicative on certain platforms. So I really only focus on those channels, and I think the other channels that they're not on, we kind of just repurpose content. A lot of them are Facebook accounts. A lot of our artists are just not active on those at all. So if there are things that we feel like that community needs to be involved with, that's what we use Hootsuite for. We'll just use it as a way to have a at a glance chance to just keep connecting.
Right.
Really, other than that, you know, you kind of have to be swimming in this shit every day in order to kind of be on top of all of it. You're not going to get everything, you know. So, but you at least want to be a part of the most important conversations. So, I'm
100%.
sure everybody knows this week it's been tough. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's time management, prioritizing what's in front for an artist, and then kind of giving artists different tasks to work on, like for my roster, making sure like they're active, for those that are very active, to lean in, especially during this quarantine, and those that we have releases for, like we're 100% focused in terms of like releases that are about 4 weeks out. So I think it's really prioritizing.
Yeah, and to your point of prioritizing, you know, having that 1 to 4 week long lead schedule, but also always being willing to pivot whenever you need to, especially if you had a plan and then, oh, this is trending on TikTok, let's jump on that. So it's really having that balance between the two and pivoting.
Yeah. And then I think for me, just having that daily, you know, check-in with artists that we're working with and making sure like they feel, you know, that we're in the mix is key, because especially in this time is like communication is big, especially because, you know, they're at home and, you know, they're creative. So it's important to kind of just check in with them, you know, with like, hey, what's up? What are you up to? Like, what's the plan this week? You know, let's go on a quick call and you know, plan something out. That's big. All right. So a few more questions before we go. Everyone's asking about Jade, Jade 7. She might be a real artist. Who knows? Is it necessary for artists to work all these media platforms on their own? Do you think it would be inauthentic to have a social media manager posting on their behalf?
At a certain point, I mean, if you're just getting started, it's like no one can craft your own voice and messaging besides you. I mean, and at the very beginning, while you're building your brand and doing all that stuff, like there's too much at stake to put in someone else's voice or tone, or that's.
Yeah, I think to your point, it's really depending on how big they are. I think at this stage for Jade, you should definitely be as active on all your platforms, at least, and making sure your voice is as authentic as possible. But obviously, if you get busier, you'll have to like find people that understand your voice and your brand to like really, you know, communicate your content.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 2 more questions before we go. Let me see here. This is some good ones. How do you communicate with a truthful and cohesive image strategy through all the different platforms? I think understanding the voice and understanding the artist early and hanging out with them and spending time with them, and, you know, not kind of treating, you know, there's adding personality to like their captions and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Like knowing their story, making sure you and the artist are on the same page with what their story is and what the message that you're trying to get out there is like the most important part of that.
I agree.
And I think, you know, spending time with them, and, you know, even if it's just, if we sign a new artist, I usually like to get, you know, if I can, at least 30 minutes in with them to really understand, okay, who are you really? And what are you, you know, we just signed this new urban artist out of Stone Mountain, Atlanta. And that's really interesting that he's from, you know, Stone Mountain and just the history behind that. So we're really, you know, tapping into that and sharing more of that, and then, you know, creating content around that and growing. So I think, you know, it's not our jobs to put together a contrived strategy. We want to keep it as real as possible. And that really starts with understanding you and what your goals are with your music and how can we take that further in the content space.
For sure. No, that's key. I'm gonna ask one more question. Obviously, we can keep the conversation going on Twitter. We can always obviously connect everybody. We've been doing some live tweeting, so you'll see everyone's handles on that. So make sure to follow the Digilogue on both IG and Twitter. And one more question. This is more kind of like a career question. Any advice for students wanting to get their foot in the door?
For students?
Yeah, just like, let's say you're in college, you're in school right now.
You want to be in the industry?
I'm sorry?
To be like an artist or to be like work at a label?
Just to work in the industry.
Oh, I think UMG has a great like campus programs. Most of the majors do, where they give people real life jobs at the label, and most of them, I know UMG, like every year, I think at least like 55% of people go on to getting internships or entry level jobs at the label. So yeah, I would look at one of those programs.
Yeah, I think it's worth obviously participating in these type of like online events, learning the people that are in the mix, being part of the culture in that respect, and not looking at just like titles, and more so getting to know people when they reach out. So speaking to that point, do you have kind of like a best practice of how to reach out to people that are working in the industry? Let's say you're on LinkedIn or like through DMs.
Yeah, I mean, I really like to make sure that when I do reach out to somebody, that it's more so something for them before it's something for me. I think it's really important to try to deliver something for somebody or provide something for somebody that they might not necessarily have. Not all situations are going to be like that. For the ones that aren't like that, I think it's just about being cordial and respectful and insightful. I think that any one of us would gladly sit and talk with anybody if they came to you well thought out and insightful and actually mapped out, not just I want to be in the industry. Why? Because I love music. It's, if you can give at least more of a nuanced approach to why it's important to you, I think a lot of people understand that. Me, from my own personal experience, when I was starting Playbook, it was in a down period of my career, and a lot of my relationships were built on LinkedIn, but a lot of it came from either trying to add value or to reach out to them to just get some insight from them in a very earnest way. And I think a lot of people really respect that and allows them to share knowledge that they've been able to accumulate. So provide something or try to reach out and get knowledge. I think that helps.
One thing that works for me too was identifying, in addition to, I think that there's a lot of like major labels do have their own college rep programs. There was a high demand at the time that I was in college, so I wasn't able to do that. But I was really just reaching out. I went to school in Philly, so I was identifying, okay, I really like these indie artists in Philly. How can I work with them? So I had my own music blog, just be who you are, and that's naturally going to shine through, and then people are going to find you that way. So create your own opportunities and do that so much that, just put that light out there and people are going to end up gravitating towards it. You're going to be so surprised at the opportunities that happen just because you are doing what you love anyways. That those are, that's who the labels want to hire. So.
For sure.
I think too, like when you're reaching out and DMing people who work in music or work in the industry, I totally agree about coming respectfully, but I also think finding some sort of a way to build a personal connection with who you're reaching out to. Like when I was first starting out, I would reach out to people and just like find a project that they worked on, or even like seeing that someone lived in like the same small town that I grew up in. Like, hey, I grew up in Bucks County too. Like just finding some kind of like personal string that you can connect yourself to that person with kind of opens people up a little bit more than just spamming people's DMs with like a SoundCloud link that they're probably not going to open.
That's the best piece of advice right there. Yeah, just find a creative way to do it. Don't just like, my music's lit and give like a link, because it's like that's or do the opposite. Do like a 2-page essay where it's like you have to find the happy medium.
For sure, yeah, you can't shortchange it, because the worst thing is like kind of seeing like, hey, just check out my music, but we've never established a relationship before. And the thing is like, it's not about that. It's more so like, let's connect as people first, and then I'll listen to your music after. And I think with the Digilogue, we've been able to do that like face to face. So like there's a community there. And I think we want to encourage people to like really just be mindful of that. It's like not about just kind of selling your music and selling your brand. It's really connecting with people first, and then really like then introducing your stuff. Right?
Treat it like it's a real conversation. You wouldn't just go up to someone like say play my music. You probably introduce yourself. Hey, excuse me. Like treat online as real conversation. And yeah. So yeah, definitely just be mindful. Obviously, if you're on Instagram and LinkedIn, and just kind of understand it's just the way you approach and the way that you message. And more importantly, I think when you meet in person, follow up with the people that you meet, especially in these type of like offline meetups going forward in the future. Like making sure your follow-up game is like, not being persistent, but just like you follow up with the people that you meet. And then let's say, let's grab coffee. Sometimes, people are busy, but I think being persistent is going to be important in that. Dope. Well, first off, I just want to thank everyone that was on this. This was really fun. Obviously, it's a Sunday, but I felt like I got my creativity and brain working.
Wait, what day
for
is
the
it?
audience? It's Sunday. I actually gelled my hair for this thing, so props. But I know it's a tough time for a lot of people, and we just wanted to like add just like another resource for a lot of our artists in this community, and super thankful for all the support that we had. But more importantly, I just want to thank Blaire, Olu, Rachael, Chris, Castro, who jumped out recently, and the Digilogue team for putting this together, and for all the people that were listening in. This is obviously our first time doing this online Zoom panel, so we had to like obviously work out the kinks, but super grateful. And I hope, like I said, with this little doc that we created, we're going to share that with everybody. And we're also going to drop a social media calendar for you guys, so you guys can kind of like really build your calendar for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and hopefully that will be helpful. But does anybody have any last words? Just want to just say thank you guys for being part of this.
I mean, thank you, Drew, for putting it together. And anyone out there, like, feel free to reach out to me. I am Chris Blackwell on Instagram. I love hungry people love hungry people, so I'm always down to listen, see what's going on, and just be a tool for you guys.
For sure.
Yeah, similarly, feel free to reach out. I'm at Rachael Hardway. And also, if you check out dauntlessmedia.co, we have an option where you can email any questions. If there's anything you didn't get to ask here, we love hearing from you. We love reaching out to you, and we love, providing as many resources as we can. And thank you, Drew, again. You're amazing. Appreciate you so much.
Man, this is a team effort, so.
Good team.
And a team, yes.
Yes, so appreciate you guys. Like I said, like I think it's important that we all check in with each other, like with your peers. So appreciate everyone being part of this on a Sunday. I know everyone's super busy with their own respective projects and stuff, but can't wait to everyone to connect offline in the future. And we'll be doing more online panels, so stay tuned. And yeah,
thanks.
Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Hey guys, have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Stay safe, everyone.
Digilogue.